customer success is based on trust and value. And the reason why I mentioned those two fundamental factors is that if the customer doesn't trust you, they're not going to necessarily listen to you so that you can achieve value. And if they aren't achieving value, then it's going to be hard to build a trusted relationship with them. So one of the first things that I recommend is building trust with your customer. A lot of it has to do with how you present yourself when you meet the customer for the first time. So even as a very small tip in the book, when you introduce yourself, a lot of new CSMs, and even if you're new to the company, you'll say something like, well, I've only been in the company for a month and I'm just kind of figuring things out. And it's like, don't do that. Like that actually reduces trust and credibility, even though you think that you're making yourself feel better and the customer will feel maybe take pity on you. It's the opposite, because the first thing they're thinking about is like, oh, why did I get this like rookie CSM or this new CSM? I want the more experienced CSM. Oh, are you telling me I'm not good enough for that? Come on. And you might think like, oh, Chad, come on, like that's a really dumb way to think about it. But why do that? So here's what I recommend. So first of all, come up with an intro that's like kick ass, and that you come into the call and it's like, I've been in customer facing roles for 3+ years. I've worked with similar customers similar to you, such as A, B, and C. And here are some other things that I've accomplished. And then if they ask you, how long have you been with the company? You need to be truthful. You need to answer that. But there's no reason to disclose that up front. So there's other things you can do to build trust. Now, moving along in the meeting, the other thing I talk about is using
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Customer Success Talks, Real Challenges, Experts Advice, the podcast dedicated to helping those transitioning into customer success and early career customer success manager. I'm Byron Toruño, your host for today's episode, customer success nerd, a customer success manager, and just like you, I'm still learning about this amazing world of customer success. And today is not going to be the exception. Today we will have another amazing episode, another amazing guest, another amazing topic. Okay, there's too much amazing there. Okay, I might be exaggerating a little bit, but it is going to be a really nice one where we will be talking about how to be strategic. And if you have been following all of the episodes, you will know that this is not the first time we touch on this topic. We also had the honor to have Annika Sumberg talking about driving business growth as a strategic advisor. And today we have another guest with another perspective who's ready to give you the secrets, the how-to. And also, there's a really nice book that we're going to talk about in a couple of seconds. But basically, that's what we will be touching today, becoming a strategic CSM. My ultimate goal as an individual customer success manager is to be a strategic. Today, I'm super thrilled to have Chad Hodenfeld as our guest for today's episode, who has spent over 20 years in SaaS, building and leading high impact customer success teams. He literally started like you and myself in the front line as a customer success manager. And today he is the VP of customer success. Now, his journey from frontline to the C-suite, as per what I read on his latest book, is something that is really inspiring. And we can see how sometimes I talk for myself. I'm criticized a lot myself into when I make mistakes. But I have read that Chad made so many mistakes that I'm like, okay, that's how we all learn, right, Chad? So
yes.
you're also for me, a thought leader. You're also a speaker. You're also a mentor. You have shaped countless customer success managers' career. And then you went one step ahead and you said, let me write a book to teach people in a scalable way. So your book is called The Strategic Customer Success Manager, which I have here, but is in digital. So you also have the option to buy it physically or digital. And I will definitely recommend you to read it and buy it. It will be all in the today's description. Okay, so Chad, welcome to Customer Success Talks. Thank you so much for being here. And are you ready?
Yes, and thank you, Byron, for having me on. I'm a listener And I love what you're doing because there's lots of customer success podcasts and videos and things out there, but there's not enough that's focused on the customer success manager and kind of what they go through. And really, really happy and excited to chat today.
Thank you for that. Same wise, I'm still not finishing reading your book. I'm still half away,
It's a big
but
book.
but it is one that makes me think, am I doing that or am I not? So let me apply it. And some of them I will share with everyone what I have applied. But Chad, let's start because there's too much. There's just too much. Let's start with the basics. I'm really curious to know what motivated you to write the strategic customer success manager and what will people expect when they read it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that when I was starting this journey, it was about 3 years ago. It took, and when I started, and there's a lot of information that's out there. And just like similar to your podcast, it's very much geared to customer success leaders. And I love reading books. If I was to give any advice to people, it's build a habit of reading. Build it into your day. Start off your day, read. Just read for a little bit. Start off with 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And that information just compounds over time. And so I wanted to give something back to the customer success community where I wanted to put something out there that took a lot of the ideas and things that I put into practice and put it into more of a formalized way. And the book I thought was the best way of doing that. And I thought the other thing is that in this post-COVID, era that we're in now, that we're in this advent of I wanted to, you know, put something out there as well that talked about customer success from this perspective. I feel for the customer success manager. I feel that there's a lot that comes at them, both from their leadership, both from their customers, and those that are looking to get into the field. And the question is like, how do I join this industry and how do I do it successfully? And then how do I sort of advance in my career? And I think there's a lot of tips in the book. It's sort of like almost like a hidden part of it, even though it's mentioned in the subtitle. But how do I just advance in my career in general? And I think it will help a lot of people from that perspective as well.
Yeah, and as per what I read or what I'm reading right now, is that it's not only about being an expert on the product, which you highlight, that it's good to learn as much as possible of the product. We're not alone. We also have our technical team. We have our RevOps, right? But if you're able to learn a lot, it gives you that authority. And I remember once I was doing an interview for a strategic customer success manager, because now there are even labels. Like now there are careers, like there are jobs that actually expect for you to be a strategic. And the feedback they gave me is that the way that I was showing and giving the solutions was a lot of feature oriented and not asking many questions. So I think that that's a challenge that we can all have a lot into thinking, okay, the more I know about the product, the better I am. But it doesn't have to be like that, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that one of the things that I always had fears going into was a customer call. I knew it was going to be a challenging call. And I'm sure many of us listening in probably have these same fears. It's like, oh my goodness, like what is the customer going to do? What are they going to say? They're really angry, or I need them to get them to do something. And I really don't know how to do that. I don't even know where to start. And this instruction and guidance is typically not coming from your leader. And it's not that they are trying to like push you in the wrong direction. It's just they're really busy and they don't necessarily have that time. And I remember myself just trying to figure this out. Like, I really want to be more effective in my calls. And so, as a default, we're going to focus on the things that are the easiest. So, number one, if the customer has said, I want to talk about this, well, then you're going to usually talk about that. And then usually what happens is you go down to a very like tactical path and you start talking about issues or product features and things like that. And really what you want to be doing is focusing on their business and what is actually going to help them move forward in their role in their career. And that is not going to necessarily be written on a piece of paper or in your instruction notes or anything like that. It's something you're going to have to do a little bit of research on, and then something that you're going to have to prepare questions to ask the customer and do that little bit of preparation. And again, it does not necessarily be a call. It can be, a message that you send them as well, just trying to get some additional information. And then the other thing you're going to be wanting to think about is like, well, what do I want to accomplish here? A lot of the times that we go into these customer calls and we have a loose agenda, and our goal is like meet with a client. Like that's our agenda. And sorry, that's our objective. And really the objective should be like, well, what do I want to do? I want to drive this customer forward so they're actually achieving value that's going to lead to either they're going to further their renewing with us and their business, or they're going to maybe it'll lead to some sort of expansion opportunity. But ultimately, like I want to make sure that we are aligning our product to what their goals are. And again, like this is where it's just as a CSM, I had the same challenge. And this is where I bring up that fear. It's like, well, I don't know what to do. I really don't know what to do. And so that's where I've really tried to, kind of blow that up a little bit. And I'm sure those who are in customer success right now, who have those fears of joining a call with a customer, usually those calls go a lot better than you thought they were going to go. But where I would challenge you is that yes, like they go better than they thought that maybe they were going to go, but you can actually leverage your time better and be even more effective in those calls and set yourself up for the long run. And it's all about how you conduct yourself, what questions you ask, how you influence your customer to take action. And those are some of the things that we go through more in depth in the book. But as an example, one of the things that I've always had a challenge with is that I'd have a great call with a customer. We'd discuss all these ideas and we'd lay out, like, here's what we're going to do. And then nothing would happen. And what I learned that I really needed to do was to really look for if the customer feels uneasy, and then just to ask a little bit more of a difficult question, such as, from 1 to 10, with 10 being you're very confident. Like, how confident are you in actually proceeding with the things that we discussed here today? And it's just kind of doing a bit of a gut check where, they might say something like, well, 3. And it's like, okay, well, that's really interesting. And, why didn't you give a lower score than that? Which is kind of weird because going below 3 is even strange. But even if they give you a 9, I would say, well, why didn't you give a lower score than a 9? Like you're really trying to test the customer to make sure that they actually will get off the call and they'll do the work that we expect of them. And we know that they're really busy. We know they have competing priorities. But again, like this is part of leveling up. It's understanding really what's important to them and then making sure that they're actually going to follow through and so that you can partner together.
Love this chat because you're giving us like a structure of preparation, which means also analyzing what do we want to extract, then during the call how to perform, but then how to not be how to actually be that person, that consultant who says, okay, these are the next steps that we both agree because this is the outcome. So let's break that down. Let's actually jump into breaking that down and see what advice you can give us towards how to be that strategic during these steps. So first is preparation. And the first challenge that comes to my mind is time consuming, but it's also so valuable. So, what advice would you give someone who is constantly on firefighting, but also needs to prepare before the call? Because then it's going to be it can be a mess, or it can be just so many directions that the customer would not have like a North Star to follow as well. And also for us. So what advice would you give us to actually move from that firefighting to have enough time to invest on that call before it happens?
Yeah, time is your biggest limiting factor, and we all have this challenge. And I would say that customer success managers who are now, in working in their organizations and those that want to join have such a huge advantage that I didn't have when I started out because, we have AI. But before I kind of get into like AI, like what I'll mention is that there's a couple of things here. Like one is if you take on and you do more things, something has to give. Like you can't just take things on and just add to your pile. And so one of the things I do talk about in the book is around productivity and the idea of thinking forward, planning, looking at your schedule, determining what is the most important things that you need to do, who are the clients that you need to meet with, what are the projects that if you did this one project, it would make other things easier and just, make more sense, to get done. And so that's a starting point is you really need to be planning. A lot of people, including myself, and this applies both to people in customer success, out of customer success managers, leaders, you have to go into the week having some sense of what is it you're going to accomplish, what is in your calendar, and what are the things that you need to prioritize. And that's a starting point. And then when it comes down to meeting with the specific customers, what I typically do is, oh, sorry, do you want to jump in, Ryan?
Yeah, of course, because that's
Yeah,
also like it's not as easy, right? Because some
no.
we need to kind of also not kind of actually we should find a strategic way to do this planning using our calendar.
Yes.
So calendar is an important tool that we have to organize all of our week. So how do you organize your week, or how would you recommend someone to maybe I don't know a Friday for next week or
Mhm.
the Monday of this week for planning for the whole week? Like how would you do that within those 8 hours?
So the first thing I would do is before you get into any technology is you need to do some reflection and you need to ask yourself, okay, what went well this week? What are some things that maybe didn't go as well as I wanted? And you can ask yourself another question like, well, what's the one thing that I really want to get done, going into next week? So just doing some reflection, I think is really important, and that will help you determine where you should be spending your time. The other thing you should be doing is looking at data that you have. So if you have a customer success platform, you should be going in and looking at, which of my clients look like they're expanding, as an example, if you wanted to kind of focus on there, which of my clients are at risk, or maybe there's some challenges there. And again, whatever technology you have, but these are the things that you want to be thinking about. Which are the customers that I haven't necessarily met with in a while and I should be meeting with? Which are the customers that are coming up for renewal? Which are the customers that are currently at risk? And what is the plan that I have to achieve that? So that's some of the reflection that you want to do. And then what you want to do is then start to bubble that down into areas that you want to focus on and thinking through your calendar. If I was to use like AI, I was to give everyone a tip here, one of the things that you can do is that a lot of these AI tools like ChatGPT and Claude, they actually have something called an MCP connector, and it can connect into Google Mail, into Gcalendar, and you can actually do a prompt like, please review my calendar in the last 30 days, or you can do 90 days, and let me know who are the customers that I'm meeting too much with, who are the customers maybe I haven't necessarily met enough with, and what are some other recommendations that you can make in terms of how I should better structure my calendar?
That
And
sounds
it's
crazy. That sounds like an
yes,
AI agent that is working for you kind of deal.
yes, like again, like if you can connect Gmail, to Claude, or or to ChatGPT, you can do that. But here's what I'd say is that even if you can't do that, you can export your calendar and import it into ChatGPT and literally just ask the same assessment. And again, like some larger companies, maybe they have some restrictions there, but I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It will give you so much insight. And the magic question I always ask in ChatGPT is like, well, like, how could I make this prompt better? And then it'll give you some insight. Oh, it's like, well, you should have put the title. My title is Senior Customer Success Manager, and I work at this company, and here's what I typically do. So that's how you can start that ball rolling to make yourself more productive. And there's other elements that I mentioned in the book. I talk about how, you should be putting holds in your calendar and mentioning the tasks that you actually want to accomplish and like leveraging your calendar effectively. So that's part of it. And then when you get to the actual meetings themselves, here's where you can use AI as well. And I'm literally using it for a meeting I have scheduled today. I'm so and so at this company at NCNAI, and I'm meeting with so and so who's this person at this company. Please tell me about their role. Please tell me about their company. And please tell me about some of the challenges that they might be having in their business that might affect the discussion that we're going to have today, which is on X, Y, and Z. So that's how you can use AI to even circumvent some of the things that you have. Like I use Vitally, and Vitally has this new AI component to it, and it summarizes what's going on in the account. I also use Update AI, and I can do a summary there based on previous calls. And that's great. That's some additional research that you can do. All of these things, they literally take 5 minutes to do, and it will just up level the conversation because when you join a call, a lot of the times, I'd say from a typical CSM, you'll say something like, "Hi, so and so," and you'll start talking about whatever, the weather and things like that. And then you'll say, "What would you like to talk about?" Which is like, whenever I hear that, I'm like, oh, I hate that so much. Like when CSMs do that, because um, yes, it's good to turn it over to the client, but sometimes the client will stare at you and it's like, well, I don't know, like, what do you want to talk about? And then the call ends early and nothing happens. And even worse, the next time they might write to you and say, "Oh, I have no agenda items. Oh, I don't have either. Oh, let's not meet." And then it starts to cascade into this really kind of downward spiral, and then you might lose the client.
It's
And
basically
so
setting up the expectations from the beginning too.
yes. So if you do that research where you learn a little bit more about them, and you can, first of all, you can do a bit of what I call like a pre-message to the client. And I love when our CSMs do this. It's like, hey, here's the items that I would really like to talk about. And you list out those agenda items. And you can say something like, I know that this is a challenge for you right now. Let's discuss how this client has done this and this. And, you know, to get a client on a meeting, you can't just assume that if you put a calendar item in their calendar that they're going to show up. First of all, to even get that meeting, you have to do like a movie trailer where you kind of give them a little bit of a, bite-sized like view into what you're going to cover. And then even when you set the meeting, you should have something that's going to entice them to join the meeting. And again, like these things are really easy to do. Doesn't take a little bit, that much longer, but it's going to improve the connection rate that you have with customers, that they will actually show up on your meeting and that you'll have a more effective meeting. Because the other thing that you're going to do is you're going to get them thinking about, oh yeah, these are some things I want to cover. Oh, and by the way, I wanted to cover this other thing. Can we cover that as well? And so then you have engagement and you get excitement, and there's a higher chance that they're going to show up at that meeting. And then one of the things I love to say on a meeting is, I read about this so and so happening. So maybe they raised money, or maybe they were launching a new product. And I'll say, oh, I saw this and this. How is that affecting your role today? Or something to that effect. And what that does is, A, it shows that you did your research, and that you know their business, and that you're thinking about them and what they might be going through. So it's showing expertise, it's showing empathy, and it's getting the conversation off onto, I'd say the right footing. So those are just some very easy things. And again, like as I was saying with AI, this makes it so much easier. And it's just building the right habits in, so that you're blending this into your process, and then you make those engagements so much more exciting. And again, it doesn't have to be a meeting. You can be doing this when you reach out to a client. It could be a video, it could be whatever it is. So these are just some small tips that you can be doing.
100%. And if you don't have those tools right now, you can try to bring that to your manager and explain the benefits of it and how much time it could save you. Because if if we don't have these tools right now, which are available, other customer success have it in other companies, and that's where you're gonna the someone is gonna start winning that part of the being strategic and the outcomes that the customer is expecting, right? But also
Yes.
it avoids a little bit of burnout, I will say. Right
You
now.
should be purchasing, like, if your company doesn't give you like a license to ChatGPT or Claude, just you need to purchase it. Like the however how many, it is dollars, euros, whatever it is, like it's worth it. And
Mhm.
um, in the book, I don't talk about AI, and that's intentional because the book would be out of date in a week.
Yeah.
Um, but um, the book is focused on how to future-proof yourself based on up-leveling your skills, on how to conduct yourself with clients, and really sort of those like non-tangible things of customer success. But in order to expedite your preparation and really kind of up-level yourself, you need to get more skilled on how to leverage these tools, so that you can speed up all those other things that will make you more impactful with your
Yeah.
customers and within your own organization.
And Chad, like I think something that I learned, because I have been learning about customer success now for a couple of years, but not being a customer success manager for that long. And we were discussing about this before we started the conversation towards is so different to learn and to apply when doing customer success. But something that I have been struggling with is to not be that customer pleaser.
Yes.
During the calls, I think that we can fall a lot into being that customer pleaser, especially if they come with, I have these technical issues, I have this, which of course are important because then it's hard for you to move the needle towards what are the next steps. But then, how would you recommend someone to move from that technical part during the call into, okay, I hear you, but we also need to talk about this because of this. Like, how can we not be that customer pleaser? Because on the other hand, I feel that if you're not that customer pleaser, you earn some authority as well.
Yes. Like I think one of the hidden secrets in working with customers is that the answer doesn't have to be yes. And they're not necessarily looking at you as wanting to be your friend. They want you to provide them with strategic advice that's going to help them in their role and make them better, and maybe perhaps advance in their career, but at least help them get home and finish their jobs so that they can do whatever they want in their free time. And and so as an example, um, when a customer comes to you and says, I would like this particular product feature, our inclination in customer success is to take on almost like this waiter personality and say, "Oh, okay, yes, let me see what I can do." And how would you like this? And all these different things. When would you like this? And really, like what we should be doing is taking a more contrarian view and saying things like, "Okay, let me like make sure I understand what is it that you're requesting. So you're requesting this, and you wanted to do this. Can I just ask some questions around this? Like, what is it that you're trying to do? Like, what's your ultimate goal? And just starting there, and then keep going and pushing down. It's like, okay, well, you've told us that your outcomes, your business outcomes, are to achieve this particular metric. Like, how does this actually relate to that? And ultimately, like what it comes down to is you can be asking, calibrated questions like, so from 1 to 10 or 1 to 5, if we compare this feature to this other feature you've requested, what's the number? Is it like from 5 being the most important? Where does it come in? And then again, like continuously asking like why and how does it compare? And then the other thing is that you don't have to give them an answer on that call. You can say something like, well, this is interesting. Let me think a little bit more about this and let me come back to you, rather than just, saying, yes, like we can do that. And as if there's managers that are listening in, like what you should be doing as well is uh, like finding those opportunities in your team's calls and reviewing them and perhaps providing advice. So there was one incident that I had a couple of weeks ago, and I saw this, and the person's like, "Well, I understand what you're trying to do. Let me bring this back to our product team," and I, reached out and messaged them directly and said, "Listen, like." That's actually not the right answer. What we've found is that other customers have done it this way, and that's fine with them. And that's really what you need to message to them because like our engineering team is only as big as it is. Like, and we have these other priorities on the roadmap. Like, we're not going to be doing that. Like, there's just no reason for us to focus on that. And I think that what I've learned, even outside of the book, because I've been talking to other customer success teams, is, just giving your customers some transparency and almost like partnering with them rather than just saying yes or no, and just saying like, here's our roadmap. Here are the items that we're working on. Here's something you really, really want. I don't want to displace that from the roadmap to focus on this. So what you're saying, I understand now. I understand it because we've gone through it, and I need to see what I can do. But here's why we've prioritized these features. And the other thing that someone taught me like recently, and again, like I'm on this learning journey just as you are. And one of the things they said is like, you've put forward like 10 feature requests. My concern is that if we keep bringing these forward, that we're going to be this like boy that cries wolf, if that fable, and we don't necessarily want to be that. We want to only put forward the most important items so we have a better chance of getting them approved. And then, lastly, is that if you have a community, if you can get other customers to sort of vote on certain things, that's another approach that you can take as well. So again, like it's a long answer, but I really want customer success managers to be thinking outside of the like we need to be people pleasers and that's our job and that isn't your job. And one of the things I talk about in terms of being strategic in the book is that it's not just about being customer centric, it's also about being about company centric. And it's a hard kind of look at things because there is a lot on our shoulders. You and I were just talking before about everything that's coming at us and how hard it is in customer success. But we also have to show empathy to those people within our organizations, our product team, our engineering team, our marketing team, our sales team. They're trying, we have to assume the best from them. They're trying to do the best. They're trying to sign the right customers. They're trying to build the best products. And we have a lot of insights to help them and we have a lot of knowledge, but ultimately people are going to make mistakes. Things happen. They happen for reasons, even outside of that individual person's role. Like the sales rep might sell into a company and sell them the wrong thing that maybe they were given the wrong advice. And we have to work on these things together to solve these things and to make our organizations better. And in that moment, we need to take responsibility to either learn more about what the issue the customer has, learn more about what feature it is they want, and then work as a company to determine, can we do this? And the last thing I'll say is that at times, the answer is that we're going to have to let this customer walk. And it's an unfortunate situation, but I've been there where the customer wants a particular feature and we couldn't build it. It just wasn't necessarily where our company was going. We couldn't necessarily get a partner to maybe build an app or something like that. And ultimately, it was like, this is just not the right customer for us. And the customer is going to have to determine if they want to stay with you or not. And before I got to that point, we would raise that up through our management, to our executive team. And as an executive group, we would determine like, okay, we're not going to further invest here. And that way, as a CSM, you're permitting yourself to potentially lose that customer, and everyone signed off on it. At times, as a CSM, and again, been there, where you kind of feel like it's helpless. Like, oh, my company won't build this feature, and I can't do anything, and I've done everything I can, and you kind of die a slow death. Um, don't do that because as a strategic CSM, the other part of your job is to communicate both to the customer and both internally. And again, that takes more time, but here's AI as your best friend as well. Just take whatever raw notes you have and form that communication in the right way and say, I want to write a message to our product leadership and to my boss about this particular customer who needs this particular feature. Can you please structure this so I can send a proper Slack message that shows empathy towards the other individuals, but also clearly indicates why this is so important and what the ramifications are if I don't build this. And those are things that you can do, and it will save you so much time and it will make you look so much better because you're communicating what's happening and you're making sure people are aware.
There's so much to uncover here, chat. Let me just go a couple of steps back, because I think that also something that you said about the questions, right? And I think that that's something that we set the expectation from the beginning to not be that technical reactive part, which is still important, but it's also can take a lot of time. Is about setting the expectation of this is what we are going to cover during today's call. This is the goal, and I will ask you a couple of questions to better understand where we are set, if this is like the first time that you're meeting with this customer, or you, because if you ask this already and it's this the second third call, well, everything has been covered already. But if not, setting those questions even makes them think into, okay, there are things that I'm missing that I need to also do a research internally, because we are not the ones who will always have the answer of everything. They
No.
also have their knowledge. They are also experts on their field. They know their in my case, my customers are hotels right now. They know a lot of their guest behavior, even data that I don't have from their end, but I also have my knowledge and I can also share that with you. So let's combine that. But for that, I need to ask you a couple of questions. So once we move that and it's like the technical side, I'm not forgetting about it. I hear you, but there's a team who is here to help you as well. But one
Yes.
of the challenges, Chad, that I'm facing is about the call to action. What recommendation would you give for a customer success manager to make sure that the customer agrees and actually takes action when it comes to next steps? Because those next steps, we agree, both me as the CSM and you as the customer, because
Mhm.
we know that there's an outcome and that outcome will benefit the goal that you want. But they're
Yes.
sometimes they're not just using one system, they're not just talking to one CSM. So how can we actually make the customer to tackle those next steps when we have set them up?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a fundamental approach to customer success that I talk about, and it's this idea of customer success is based on trust and value. And the reason why I mentioned those two fundamental factors is that if the customer doesn't trust you, they're not going to necessarily listen to you so that you can achieve value. And if they aren't achieving value, then it's going to be hard to build a trusted relationship with them. So one of the first things that I recommend is building trust with your customer. And there's lots of different ways that you can do that. A lot of it has to do with how you present yourself when you meet the customer for the first time. So even as a very small tip in the book, when you introduce yourself, a lot of new CSMs, and even if you're new to the company, you'll say something like, "Well, I've only been with the company for a month, and I'm just kind of figuring things out." And it's like, don't do that. Like that actually reduces trust and credibility, even though you think that you're, you know, making yourself feel better and the customer will feel maybe take pity on you. It's the opposite because the first thing they're thinking about is like, oh, why did I get this like rookie CSM or this new CSM? I want the more experienced CSM. Oh, are you telling me I'm not good enough for that? Come on. And that's a you might think like, oh, Chad, come on, like that's a really dumb way to think about it. But why do that? So here's what I recommend. So first of all, come up with an intro that's like kick ass and that you come into the call and it's like, I've been in customer facing roles for 3+ years. I've worked with similar customers, similar to you, such as A, B, and C. And here are some other things that I've accomplished. And then if they ask you, how long have you been with the company? You need to be truthful. You need to answer that. But there's no reason to disclose that up front. So there's other things you can do to build trust. Now, moving along in the meeting, you're one of the things, the other thing I talk about is using these psychological methods when you talk to customers. And there's a key thing that I've applied to customer success called motivational interviewing. And it was something that I learned from just reading other books. And I just went down a hole and I was like, wait a minute, I'm doing this already. There's actually like a psychotherapy method. And what used to like what therapists used to do is that if they were handling people that had addictions, they would say, "You're an idiot, stop drinking or stop gambling, and why are you doing that?" And of course, that wouldn't really work. So what this motivational interviewing method, and it was talked about by Adam Grant in one of his books, Think Again, and this actually applied to COVID because what they were having challenges with is actually getting people to take the vaccinations. And what it came down to is just asking questions of that individual and trying to understand their perspective more. What are they concerned about? What are the things that they want to learn more about? And that's another form of building trust. And it's almost getting the customer to come to the conclusion themselves. And if anyone out there is a parent, I'm a parent, I have 3 kids, telling your kids to go to bed and just saying go to bed, that's like, not going to work. And so, and you can't threaten your customers. You can't say like, oh, if you don't go to bed, I'm not going to do
Oh,
this.
come on. That's
So
too late to know. I already did it.
yes, don't do that. But what you can do is you can ask them questions and learn more about them and build trust. And at the end of the day, I have this framework. It's called the Soon funnel that I learned from a CSM on one of my teams. And you go through this sort of framework of asking what does success mean to them? What are the obstacles to achieving that? What are some options that we can do to help you achieve that success? And then what are the next steps that we should take? And so going through this formula and ultimately asking them what are the next steps and having them vocalize what those are, that's like gold. Because if they say what the next steps are, then there's a higher chance they're actually going to take action. Where what we usually do is go through a call, tell the customer what they need to do. Sometimes we're already thinking about it in our head, like before they finish talking, like, just shut up already so I can tell you what to do. And then you can do that and then we'll be fine. And then telling them, here are the next steps that you need to take. And then, of course, a lot of the times nothing happens. So it's really showing empathy, asking questions, repeating back what they've said to you, which is another like framework I talk about in the book, this ORS framework, and then getting them to vocalize, here are the things that we need to do. And of course, if they don't know what to do, then what you want to do is come in and say, well, I've worked with these other customers and they've done A, B, and C, and here's kind of why it's recommended to do these things. And so it's using like a psychological framework called social proof. And so that helps move things along. And rather than you saying, well, I think you should do this because I've done this, because they'll be like, who are you? And again, if you have trust, there's more of an inclination they're going to listen to you. But even when you have trust, they are the, just like you said, they're the expert. So who are you telling them what to do? And that's why you have to get them to actually, almost understand and internalize that, yes, this is what I need to do. And this stuff's not easy either. And that's why, again, I've written the book and there are exercises that will help CSMs practice these things with their teams so that you can get better at this.
Indeed, indeed. It's something that as you practice, it becomes automatic in your mind. And I will tell you why. Chad, I have been reading your book. I have been extracting a lot of knowledge. And I'm also working with a mentor that if someone can actually work with a mentor, I will 100% recommend that. And my goal is to be that strategic CSM. And it's not easy, but it is possible step by step. And I think that confidence plays a big role here. And something that I applied, Chad, from your book is the introduction part. That introduction is so powerful that I notice when it's powerful because when they also bring when they introduce themselves, they also bring their years of experience. Where before they were like, yeah, I'm the general manager, I'm the revenue manager at this hotel. But now they want to level up with me and they say, I have X amount of years working for this hotel, X amount of years of a revenue manager, X amount of years. So now you notice that, okay, they want to level up and stay on your, like if there's a customer listening here, I hope not from my, I hope they're not, but in my introduction, I say I have X amount of years working in the hotel industry and X amount of years as a customer success manager, where I don't yet, but I'm going to. And
Yeah.
now I can see the difference. And then I also say, set up the expectations at the beginning because I feel that they're more focused at the beginning and tell them um, at the end, you will have next steps we will agree on. And if they're not applied, we would just be losing time. And I don't know if I'm that brutal. Should I not be? You tell me, chat. But I'm being brutal by saying that because I'm setting up the expectation into, hey, this is your time, this is my time. These are the advice, suggestions that we both have been talking about. And if they're not applied, so this call would not make sense. So I think that something that you use that is so powerful is the social proof, and I recommend everyone going back to listen to the 2 episodes that we have about the power of persuasion in customer success, where we cover the seven pillars of
Hmm.
influence by
Yeah,
Dr.
great book.
Cialdini, Robert Cialdini.
Yeah.
And the social proof that I use is like, this is the amount of revenue other hotels are doing using the benchmark as much as possible. There's where I want you to be. And for that, we need to start by doing these call to actions. And Chad, how many call to actions would you recommend? Because at the beginning, I used 5. Now I moved to 1, max 2. And I break it down in the email into highlight. And this is the most important one. And this is the important, less important, but impactful. So how would you recommend as well when it comes to the amount of call to actions?
I mean, it just depends. Like if you're reaching out to them to schedule a meeting or you're just reaching out to them just to engage them, like one thing, like what's the most important thing? And give them a bit of a teaser, and then you can maybe talk more to them. And then it's a good point. Like when you're doing like a business review, or I call it a strategic checkpoint, just have a max of 3 things. Like don't have a whole list of things as a follow-up, because you'll just lose them. I mean, it just depends on the situation, but smaller and shorter and more succinct. And the thing we didn't talk about is like in order to get them to act, it has to tie to their business outcomes, right? Like that's part of like defining what those things are, and going you
True.
get just kind of full circle, right? It gets back to their business. Like they're more inclined to do things that are tied to what they need to do rather than you saying, "Oh, we have a great new feature, you should do it." And maybe your boss is saying, "Oh, we need to get all these customers adopting this new feature." And they might tell you to do that, but you have to be the person that's going to actually apply it and make it applicable to their business, their situation. And it's hard, but that's part of our job.
You earn, all right, Chad, let's see. You earn that authority during the call, right? If we go one step back, you strategically prepare. You have your time for the week where you're gonna talk, where you're gonna sit down and analyze your week, and then strategically move stuff. Then we also talk about what happens after the call, how to set up those call to actions. And there's still so much to uncover here. But those tips that you gave are something that we can start applying today, right away. Maybe even someone can go into YouTube, download the transcript, and maybe put something in ChatGPT and create a template based on what you're given, right?
Yeah.
And this template you can use to prepare. But now, one of the one of the topics that I want to cover with you, and I want to leave this clear, are the top three skills that we need to keep in mind to become a strategic customer success. Because if we don't have these skills, which are many, but I want to break it down to three, it's hard to have that impact, right? So, which are those three backbones skills that we should start learning right now, so that way we can start seeing a better impact not only on our portfolio but also for us as individual collaborators? What are those three pillars?
Yeah, it's hard because I do have a whole chapter on this in the book.
I know it's amazing.
So it's I definitely recommend people go through that, and I also talk about how I screwed up, and that was another title of the book was like how Chad screwed up. But there's three items. So one I would say is around this idea of the growth mindset and having this like higher EQ, and this idea that you should be thinking about how can I continue to evolve and grow and learn, and it doesn't have to necessarily be into a new title. It's just a matter of like how can I what are things that I can do better at? And so, an example of that is being reflective. So we talked about, reflecting on your week and just reflecting on some of the things that you may have done that week. And I do this all the time where I think about a situation and how I reacted in that situation. Did I react the best? Did I not react the best? I mean, I had a situation, even yesterday where it's the weekend and there's a lot of things going on, and there just wasn't a situation where I handled properly. And this is like a personal situation, and it comes down to like normal like marital things where it's like, park here or park there, and I reflected on it and I apologized for how I acted because I just kind of got stressed out in the area and that particular time frame, and so it's really, really important. And another part of that, depending on the size of the company and where it's at, but if it's a startup, this idea around adaptability and being able to adapt and change, and then this gets into like grit and being resilient, so important. So that's one whole area that if you want to continue to evolve and this idea of being strategic CS, you have to keep learning in this growth mindset. Similar to like how I mentioned, you get into a call and you're scared of the customer, and that's normal. But you need to be thinking about, I can improve, I can get better at this. It's not a talent, it's just a matter of learning a skill. And I think one of the things that we talked about is like this idea of a strategic customer success manager, the title. I don't believe in that. I believe that we can all be strategic customer success managers. It's more of a mindset. And I also believe that we have to be, because we're now in this new age of AI where we have to up level our profession. So the second thing would be around business acumen. And so it gets to this idea of we all have to be product experts. There's no question in customer success, and I don't want to belittle that. I know the product really well, and I think even as leaders, we need to know our product. But at CSM specifically, need to know it really, really well. But we also need to know the business of what we're in, and that could be the business of our company. If we're a SaaS company, what's our ARR? How do we make money? What's more profitable versus not profitable? And you know, as a success manager, if you're a junior success manager, maybe you don't need to know everything about that, but you should definitely know what are your clients sorted by ARR, which are the most important ones, which are the more profitable customers, even in the sense that, which are the ones that are maybe paying you more and maybe you're not necessarily working with them as much, but just knowing some of those financials, knowing the current ARR of your company, where it's going, its trajectory, and then that then translates into knowing your business of your customer, knowing their business, how they make money, who are their customers, what are their challenges, and then this will help you in those strategic conversations around business outcomes. Because ultimately, a business outcome is how are you making money? How do I make more money, more revenue? How do I save money? And then specific areas it kind of delves in further. But business acumen is so important, and it can even get into analytics and making a case based on analytics, because it's all revolves around the business side. Um, and then the last one is around teamwork, and I'd say that and just this idea of asking for help, and it ties in very nicely with the other areas. I used to think as a CSM that I could just do everything on my own. I didn't need other functions. I didn't even need other teammates. I could just was this lone wolf, this hero, and if I knew the product really well, I could do anything. I could build anything, solve anything. And of course, that's not the case. You need your teammates. You also, like a problem I have, and I say I have because I'm not out of this yet, is asking for help, being vulnerable and saying like, listen, you know what? I can't do this. I can't figure this problem out and not ruminating over it for like way too long and wasting time and just saying, listen, I can't do this. And it's not a weakness, it's a strength to ask for help. And then the other part of it is leaning on other teams, assuming the best, not blaming other teams, and trying to work together to come to a solution. So, it's a lot there, but I'd say that those are really important elements of being a strategic CSM.
Chad, thank you very much. Thank you very much for taking the time, the passion, even writing a book about this topic that we left many things aside, but I think we tackled what we can actually do as individual collaborators starting today. I have learned a lot from your book. I think you also recommend like listening to podcasts about your customers, right? So I want to share just a small tip about book Notebook LM, where you
Hmm.
can, if you have like TL like a software, a tool that records your conversations, you can download that transcript, put it on Notebook LM, and ask it to please create a podcast where you can also learn from each call. So you're having an interesting podcast where you listen in 15, 10 minutes. It's
Yeah.
also giving you feedback on how to improve better, like how to be more strategic, for example, could be a prompt. So that's so awareness, adaptability, business acumen. I think that there's no more to share than a big thank you to you, Chad, for your time.
Oh, thank you so much, Byron, and thank you for everything you're doing as well. This is a great show. I listened to it, and I think everyone should be listening to it. It's great.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And everyone, like you all know, remember, don't stop learning. Remember, keep learning, keep growing, and let's keep improving the world of customer success. Until next time.
Yes, amen.